Hello, and welcome to Saving People Queering Things, the supernatural podcast where no one is surprised that Dean's siren is a man.
Today, we are pulling up to season 4 with episode 14, Sex and Violence. I'm Abigail, and my pronouns are they, them.
I'm Elayna, my pronouns are she, they.
I'm Noah, my pronouns are he, him.
And we have two amazing guests with us today. Beth and Hannah, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your connection to Supernatural?
Woohoo. Sure, yeah. I'm Beth. My pronouns are she, her. Started Supernatural last year and then made everyone around me watch, and now I have a podcast.
Only last year? Oh my goodness, welcome.
Yes, very new in the fandom. I watched Supernatural within 3.5 weeks. I feel like I always have
Oh
to
my
say
goodness,
I didn't
literally
even know that
watching,
was possible.
watching your TikToks, I would never freaking know. Like, I thought that you had been here with us for the last decade, which, I mean, anyone that watches the show it has been through a decade worth of pain.
Yes.
But
I hyperfixate on things, and so when I watched it, I also just consumed a lot of like fan media and
yes.
Tumblr posts, and so I feel like I have a lot of the history, even though I wasn't.
What got you into it? Like, what was the now I'm gonna watch Supernatural in the year of our Lord 2021?
Well, I know it's a choice
way to
for
word
sure.
that.
I got like a few TikToks that were like just talking about it. Like TikTok thought that I was a Supernatural fan, and so I just started. I was playing Sims a lot at the time, so I just started watching the episodes while I was playing Sims, and then I quickly just kept watching the episodes and not playing Sims. And then I made it my entire personality. Yep.
You said you have a podcast. Do you want to?
Yes. Raising Perdition. We're also a Supernatural rewatch podcast. We're in season 2. And then we also are doing Raising Winchesters, which is about the Winchesters each week. So
Okay.
and I keep saying we because Hannah is next to me and she's about to introduce herself. So she's on there.
Yeah. I'm Hannah. Thank you, Beth, for that lovely introduction.
Good segue. It's almost like you're, podcasters or something.
My pronouns are also she, her, and I started watching Supernatural around the same time as Beth, but it was very scary to me in the first season, so I stopped, and I told Beth I was watching it, and she was like, you have to keep watching, and so I was like, okay, I will for you, and then I ended up liking it, and then we started a podcast together. So yeah, and Beth sent me, I don't hyperfixate on, well, I do, but not on this, and so Beth sent me like all of her Tumblr posts and stuff she found while I was watching because she had like already fit. So yeah.
How long did you two watch the whole show?
It took me a little bit longer, and a lot longer than Beth. Like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which I feel is so reasonable.
Yeah.
So reasonable.
Not so mentally ill like mine.
Yeah.
Very reasonable.
The thing is, I don't really have a high horse to be on there because I didn't watch 15 seasons in like 3 weeks, but that's because there wasn't 15 seasons to be out. If there had been, the chances that I would have, I think I did watch the first, I think there were 6 seasons out at that point, and I think I did watch all of them in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we got into it like right around the same time because they were halfway through season 6
I
when
think it was
I got
like
into
between
it.
6 and 7 was.
So yeah, it would have been within months of each other because the first episode I ever watched live was, 6/12, like a virgin.
What a
Choice one to start on.
Yeah. Wow.
What a time to be alive.
season 6 to start watching
Truly.
live. I usually watched the only season I watched live because usually it was hard to access it here. So the only season I actually watched live was season 9, which is very funny to me now.
Because you hate season
And I
9.
rage quit at the end of it and was like, nope, I'm done. I'm not watching this show anymore. It took me till the confession to come back.
Right.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that because I kept getting TikToks about it. So I knew like slightly some spoilers, but I kept hearing about there's a gay angel. And I was like, I need to see who the gay angel is.
Gotta see that.
Welcome.
Well, and Noah has a unique experience too because Noah's
Has seen up
grew
to
up
where
on
we
Tumblr,
are.
but also hasn't ever seen the show until now.
And now I have to take my freaking time. And
I feel like that's
slow.
impressive.
It is
to be on
impressive.
Tumblr and not watch the show because I feel like everyone on Tumblr has seen the show.
I'm not a very social, I don't post a lot on anything, but I don't know. It was just enough to get the concept of the show and the feels and a lot of the gifs of the real raw emotions that
It's like you either go on Tumblr because you watch Supernatural or you are subjected to Supernatural against your will because you're on Tumblr. There's only those two options.
yeah.
Well, and Noah's older sibling is my best friend. And so my first round of being obsessed with Supernatural was like when we were both teenagers and on Tumblr always. And so then like immersed in it. But they also didn't watch Supernatural at that point. They just lied to me about it for years. So
They pulled a long con.
they pulled a very long con.
Interesting.
Hilarious.
They know so much about Supernatural. Like until I started this podcast, sorry, Hannah, I'm roasting you today.
Oh,
I just think it's very funny because Hannah, when we were in high school, we would do meta. We would like, our blogs were like full of Supernatural stuff. We would talk about Supernatural. We would do like AU, like sort of like on the fly fic writing and like role playing and all of these things. And then I find out when I start this podcast and I'm chatting with Hannah and being like, hey, do you want to like be a kind of part of it? Because at the beginning I was just like on every episode and then I would just kind of have like a rotating group of people that would take other episodes. And then Hannah admits to me, they were like, I've only ever seen like 2 episodes of the whole show. And I was like, you've only, excuse me?
you mean like in the past week, right?
Yeah, I mean like, I was like, you mean like, yeah, I was like, and they were like, no, I've seen Faith and 1518. And I was like, I'm sorry, back up to the part where you only seen Faith and 1518.
What?
Okay, listen.
I mean,
That's a galaxy brain perspective to
Yeah.
have.
Yes, it really is. And they have one of the best grasps of like what Supernatural is about. They can do some of the best analysis for someone
crazy.
who exclusively knows Supernatural because they've read most of the Wikipedia articles on episodes.
Wow.
Wikipedia
That's-
articles, Tumblr theories, dozens of fanfics, like
That's insane.
Yeah.
yeah.
To have Hannah Beth's mind.
Anything but the show. It's
Yeah.
like she deliberately tried to avoid the show
Mm.
and just
Oh, that's
absorb it everywhere else.
That's accurate. That's accurate.
That would actually be really cool if they ever wanted to do a podcast of their own where it was like, anything but the show and the podcast is them talking deep theories about things they've never seen before. And that would be a really quality podcast.
I would be so mad at you if I told you to watch Supernatural and you're like, okay, and you weren't.
Well, no. It wasn't like you told
No,
her to watch it and she
no,
didn't.
I
But
just
it was
assumed over years of talking
Right.
about Supernatural that she
I
had.
feel like that's a logical thing.
It was. And like, we've never lived in the same city. We've like always been long distance friends. And so like, we would sit on Skype or Rabbit and we would watch stuff and we would chat about it. But mostly we would communicate through like Tumblr.
Oh,
And,
remember
you know,
Skype?
and
Before days.
it was very funny because now I have to very selectively pick episodes where I'm like, I really need you to have seen this episode. So I'm making you be on it with me so that you have
Yes,
to watch
sir.
it.
bonus points. You get to spend time with your lovely brother.
Yes, and then this is how Noah ended up on here.
Right.
Full circle.
Full circle.
Fate.
Fate. And now we have Hannah Beth and Beth.
So wild.
That's
And we have a Hannah Beth and we have a Beth.
Uh-huh.
yes.
Yes. Oh my
Which
goodness.
is so weird because like the fact that there's another Beth at all, because I feel like my name's not super common for like our generation. It's like an older type name, but
That's
like
true.
I've met a Bethany that's younger than me. But
Bethany
she
though.
definitely goes
Not that
by
my name is
Bethany.
actually Beth, but
Okay,
Right.
fair.
I've never met a Hannah Beth or anyone with the middle name Beth who's not from the South.
yeah.
So that's really
Well,
interesting.
Texas.
Also from South.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
From Texas? I'm
Yeah.
also from Texas. That is so wild.
We're at in Texas. This is all cut.
Waco, Texas.
Fucking Waco? You kidding me?
Please don't cut that. No, don't do it.
God damn.
I don't live there anymore,
Yeah,
so you can leave
She was
it.
a very small child when she lived there.
Yo, that was savage just now.
No, Waco's fine. It's not El Paso.
I didn't choose it. I was just born there.
It's not El Paso.
Hey, I hear you. I hear you.
What did El Paso ever do to you?
El Paso is the devil's armpit. It's fine. We're not going to
That
talk
was
about
so
that.
very strong.
Yeah, we're not here to get into Texas beef today. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. But
I have no opinions of Texas, honestly. Like I lived there
For like 5 years.
6 years, yeah.
6
And
years?
then my parents were born there. But like besides that, and lived there their whole lives until we moved to Tennessee. But besides that, I'm like, it's state.
So it's like you're raised by Texans, but you don't feel like a Texan.
Right. I feel like a Tennessean for sure. Through and
For
through.
sure.
that's
So now that you've met us all, it is time to catch you up. If you haven't watched Supernatural recently, here is what you've missed on the road so far. First up, Elayna is going to recap season 4 and where we've been up to this episode. Are you ready?
Never, but let's go.
Okay, I'm gonna count you in. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Dean ends up coming back from hell because of a gay angel, and then he has like a whole religious crisis, and then he goes back in time, and then they deal with this like monster that they're like, is he a monster? We don't know if he's a monster. And then they deal with an actual monster in Monster Movie, and then there's like a a ghost sicknessy thingy that's all weird, and Dean gets scared, and then there's pumpkins, and they find out about the seals, and there's somebody's wishfully thinking and having sex, doing stuff, and then Chris Angel's a douchebag. I don't know.
Yeah, you did it. You did it.
I got real lost. I was trying to scroll. I was literally just scrolling through the list of the
You're
episode
looking at
titles.
the list of episodes right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. And I was
Love
just like,
it.
let me see if I can hit one sentence for each one. And then I lost track of time. But you know what? I stand by it.
It was beautiful. It was a work of art.
Great.
If it's acceptable to the group, it is acceptable to me.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
You did it, and that's truly all that I can ask for. That I didn't have to do it. So great job.
Now, so next, Beth and possibly Hannah, who knows? We'll have to wait and see, are going to recap this week's episode, which is episode 14, Sex and Violence. Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
So there's people dying as per usual, and it's husbands murdering their wives, and they keep saying, "Oh, a stripper made me do it, but not make me. I love her so much." And the boys are like, "Oh, that's weird. It sounds like a monster." And they figure out it's a siren, and oh my goodness, the siren's in town and sleeps with one of the boys. It's not Sam, even though he has sex with a random person. It's Dean, and Dean Siren's a man. Who's surprised? Not me. And then they fight. The boys fight over secrets, and then Bobby saves the day. The end.
That's excellent.
Damn.
Excellent.
Nailed
Excellent
it.
recap. That was
No notes whatsoever.
very thorough.
Wrapped it up with Bobby saving the day as it should
Yeah.
be.
You like timing was
Beautiful.
perfect. Like
We
for a
stand
first-
Bobby.
like, I forgot that Bobby was the one that like saves the day at the end of this episode.
Yeah. If it
I
wasn't for
love it
Bobby,
whenever he's in full dad Bobby mode.
Yes.
Yeah. Me too.
love Bobby.
Love Bobby.
We'll come back to talking about Bobby in a few minutes, but
Now it's time to pick music to accompany us on our journey. We're collecting songs to create a season 4 mixtape. Here's what we have this week. Abigail, did you want to go first?
yeah. So I'm going again. I feel like I've done this a number of times. I'm going with a Hozier song. Again, I'm going to go with someone new just because I think it works well in this episode for Dean, particularly. You know, that's all. That's the only reason. Because I think it's a little funny.
Beautiful. My pick was Roses by the band Camino. Fun little bop that's kind of all about what if what you were looking for was right here all along, and kind of just an interesting take on this episode. I liked it.
My song for this week, I pulled from the playlist for the Destiel fic that I did because reasons. And the song is called My Own Person by Ezra Williams. And it has such choice lines as, I don't feel like I'm my own person. I just feel like some other version of me. And I feel like, I don't know, that captures it for me.
It works on a few levels for a few people in this episode.
Yeah.
I am choosing Illicit Affairs by Taylor Swift.
Oh, yes.
yes.
Yes. I was really
So
hoping
I'm
someone
very
was going to
nervous.
go with Taylor Swift.
Nailed it.
So I'm very glad.
But Illicit Affairs, one, because like Sam and his secrets, I think that it really pulls with that.
Mhm.
And then with the men with their stripper siren person and then like having to off their wife, it just, the vibes felt right. So that's why I picked it.
That's
Very
the
good
thing
pick.
about illicit affairs, clandestine meetings, and longing stares. That's Dean
Yes.
Winchester's entire personality.
Yeah. My song is called Within You, Without You. It's by the Beatles. And it is kind of like it's about the parts of you that you kind of keep hidden, showing them, and how like the world would be a better place if we are like unapologetically ourselves type thing. And like world peace will happen if we are truly who we are. So I thought, again, a very Dean Winchester song.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
I
that.
didn't know that I could be 32 and be exposed to a Beatles song I didn't know. So now that we've got our mixtape playing, let's get the show on the road with today's episode, Sex and Violence, through the theme of vices, which is just too appropriate.
Yeah. Does anyone have anywhere that they want to start with this episode? Maybe we start with a definition of vices because that might be a good place to start. Definition of vices include immoral or wicked behavior or immoral or wicked personal characteristic.
Well, I think
Yeah.
the most on the nose is that, the title of it, both sex and violence, like, are vices in and of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, often considered that way in popular culture,
Yeah.
and very much so in this episode.
Yeah. That's certainly how they're treated anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we're dealing with a character like a siren who, like, you know, historically has all these connotations of like, I'm going to lure you into doing something.
Temptation
Like,
and
mm-hmm, but totally no homo.
of course. Yeah, I have so many thoughts swirling around in my brain.
Yeah, the queering things is really going to jump out this episode, everyone, because I feel like this episode, this is the episode that if you could, like, you know, sit Jensen down and force him to watch an episode and through the lens of Destiel and like through the lens of a reading of by Dean Winchester, it would have to be this one, because how do you get through this episode and be like, oh yeah, it's because he wanted a brother? Like, no.
Yeah.
He wanted something, but it wasn't a brother.
I want to hear Noah, like, as a first-time watcher of this episode,
Yes.
like, knowing what you know,
Please.
like, you know, what did you think of this episode?
Okay, I honestly loved it because it's a great time. I love the siren idea. It's fun to examine, especially in a modern world. Right off the bat, the actor for Nick Monroe, the agent, he's from 911 Lone Star recently, but in this one, he's so much smaller. He's like a foot and a half shorter, he looks like, because he's standing next to Jared and Jensen. But in 911 Lone Star, he's standing next to normal sized people, so he looks huge. But in this one, he's a lot younger and standing around tall people. But so I recognized him and was, oh, he's probably the bad guy. if you recognize an actor, they're either a big victim or they're the bad guy. But it was fascinating because I kind of knew it was coming because people had mentioned it before. Dean Siren's a male, sure. But I paid attention to Sam's expression whenever he realizes that that's the siren. And it was beautiful because his face wasn't judgy or shameful or reactive at all. It was just logical. It was purely trying to figure out what was happening and then realizing it was the siren, and that was it. There was no...
And
he wasn't surprised.
Not a
he looks at
hint of
Dean,
surprise.
he looks at the siren, he looks back at Dean, and he goes, okay. And then he just kind of moves on and is like, well, now we need to solve this problem. But
Yeah.
it's
Well, isn't the line, "You're one butt ugly stripper," which, like,
Yeah.
wow, way to slut shame Sam.
yeah, come on, Sam, do better.
Yeah,
Do better with the siren that's trying to murder you.
yeah, we expected more from you, Sammy boy.
I think it's important to note, and if you've seen the episode, you'll know this, but it's important to note that, like, at that point in the episode, the only thing they have established about sirens is that they infect using sex, like that they infect their victims using sex. So, like, Sam has we have the information that, you know, they shared a beer bottle and saliva. But, like, Sam does not know that. So Sam's reaction is not to, like, oh, somehow this siren has affected my brother. His initial reaction is based on the premise that, like, the only way Dean's getting infected is because they slept together. So just that's, like, really important and gets, like, looked over in the rest of that scene.
Yeah.
It gets yada yada very, very quickly.
Especially because Dean calls Sam out for banging a bunch of monsters, you know? I feel like if someone had just called me out on that and then they themselves had sex with a siren, by my assumption, I would call him out on it.
Oh, Sam was trying to be the bigger man. He was like, it's okay
This
that
is a
you
big
had
enough
sex with
step.
a monster.
It happens to the best of us.
Me too, buddy.
I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna throw you into a whole, like, monster fucking and also gay crisis at the same time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
now's
he's
the
like
time.
one sexuality crisis at a time.
Priorities.
Exactly.
It's fair.
I do want to point out, though, that, like, Sam should know better than to, like, have slept with that, like, oh my, you're hunting a fucking siren, like,
And you're gonna
got
sleep
so
with a random
mad.
stranger.
so stupid
Yeah.
and horny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We constantly talk about the unhinged behavior of early seasons Sam, and this is a really good example. Like, also he's feeling a little arrogant right now.
Yeah.
You know, he's up on his high horse. But I'm like, you're literally going after a monster who sleeps with people, and you're just gonna sleep with a random person? Why?
You don't know who the monster is at this point. Like, you have no.
Sleep with a random person who's helping you be part of the investigation.
Right.
And loses evidence.
Yes.
Like,
I don't-
put a couple of pieces of information together, Sam, and then
He's-
make a choice that's not the choice you made.
He's definitely not thinking with his upstairs brain on that one.
So true.
Make better choices, Sam.
I think it's one of my favorite things about, like you said, the early like unhinged decisions of Sam. It's like, I'm like, Sam mellows out later on.
Yes.
In the show a ton, but like in these early seasons, he's just like reckless about the strangest things.
Yes.
The like specifically like I keep fucking monsters is the thing. Like, and obviously this lady doesn't actually turn out to be that, but like the point kind of still stands.
Oh yeah, she could have been.
Yeah,
Could-
He didn't know.
Also, like as a doctor, like she should not be having sex at work.
No.
Especially
That's
not drinking and having sex at work.
You're
Man.
right.
She has some
Well,
problems,
coming
I
back to the
think.
point of vices, I think she's got a few of her own. Like,
Yeah.
Clearly, she had the alcohol ready.
She did.
Yeah.
Right. That was there before Sam.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She is very bold about just being like, I have no qualms about
which, you know what?
someone I'm interacting with in a professional capacity, breaking all of those boundaries.
Yeah.
I respect that Supernatural did finally allow like a woman to just like be confident in her sexuality enough to
Yeah.
do that, though.
And
And
she's
you know-
not a monster.
And she
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
die
And
after
she-
she
And
sleeps.
she
Yeah.
doesn't die.
Wow, is she
Wait,
like the only
as far as
one?
we know. Yeah.
She
so far.
escapes. She escapes.
You know what?
Sam's
Oh,
cursed
wow.
penis. Wow.
She escapes the
She escapes.
narrative.
Congrats,
Look
Kara.
at that.
Yeah, way to go, Kara.
You go, girl.
Way to go.
Fantastic. My God. Never had considered that before.
So lucky.
Yeah,
Hmm.
she's so lucky. She has no idea how lucky she is.
She'll never know.
They left town and she dodged the biggest bullet.
Yes.
Did.
I know when like Dean's like, do you want to like call her? He's like, no. That's probably
He's
for
like,
the
she'll
best.
just die.
If I make an emotional connection beyond
She's
the
good.
physical, if I make an emotional connection, done for.
Immediately dead. So no, we'll move on.
Wow.
I do want to like point out like early on in the episode, so like the first victim that we meet, and when he's talking to Sam and Dean about the effects of the siren, because I think this is like important framing for how sirens work, is he says, you know, about the siren, he says, you know, she was perfect, she was everything that I wanted. It wasn't about the money, it wasn't even about the sex. I don't know what it was. It's hard to explain. But pairing that with also the concept in the rest of the episode that like even if it's quote unquote it's not really even about the sex, it also like only happens in the context of like romantic / sexual interest. Like that's how the siren, even when the siren is trying to like pull people from like their mother or their brother, they're still doing it in the form of like
Flirtation.
which I think is important when you think about Dean and the siren.
Right.
Yeah. And this isn't really spoilery, but there is a moment in the much later seasons where Sam and Dean are talking to these two guys. They're like two hunters that they encounter. And, you know, Dean is just like, oh, yeah, you know, you guys are fight like brothers. And it's like more like a married couple. Like Dean is oblivious to men flirting with each other. And that is canonical and remains
with him.
for the entirety of the show. And so, like, it's very, I think anybody that's watching it, you can see that this siren is using those like flirtation devices of, you know, mentioning the things that Dean is interested in and seeming like really like, yeah, like I really like being around you. Like he's clearly flirting with Dean, and Dean is just so excited that there's another human being showing interest in him, poor sweet baby, that he doesn't even catch on to it. He's so oblivious for all of his confidence and like, you know, ladies man swagger. He has no idea when someone's flirting with him actually.
Especially men, I think.
Yes.
I think when Dean can flirt with a woman and like
Pretty
not
well.
get as flustered as he does when a man flirts back. When a man flirts back, he's like, I don't know what to do. Or he just like
screen Winchester.
right.
Yeah.
Or he just doesn't catch on to it. Like
yeah, he gets a 404 error.
yeah, he's just like, oh, they're just being nice, but like he just doesn't realize that men are attracted to him.
This is like a recent episode that we just discussed, but like in the Chris Angel's a douchebag, he gets a man who flirts with him and the first thing he thinks to say is, I'm sorry, I think I've been had.
Yeah.
Honey, use your words.
No idea. No thoughts, only nothing. Air.
Only
Just
nothing.
air.
Just air.
No thoughts, only nothing.
I would also
That's
say
great.
that like even with women though, like Dean Winchester, when he's with a woman, it's in a very specific context
Correct.
of him like picking up a girl at a bar. Like he rarely just like meets a woman like out and has like an actual connection with her. Cause like I can think of like in season 3 with Bella, like when she's like very upfront, like he acts the same way as he does when a man flirts with
Gets
him.
all flustered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it's
That's
not
very
on like
good point.
if it's not not like on his like specific script of like, okay, this is what's happening. He just can't, he doesn't know what's happening.
And I think that holds true across like later seasons and earlier seasons. Like like you said, he follows a script and he's like very good at flirting when it follows a script. When anyone breaks that script and goes off book, he like does not know how to interact because like, again, he doesn't really know how to interact with like people who are like have normal lives in general. But I think about like someone like even like Cassie, like in season 1, where he doesn't quite know how to, like he doesn't follow his normal pattern of like picking up girls when he interacts with Cassie, and he often feels like he's kind of on the wrong foot, like he doesn't know what to say or how to flirt, and he also allows her to take a lot more of the lead. And I think that is also in this scenario with Nick, that back and forth is a lot.
Well, that point it's a very good one because it points out that like Dean can do the initiation, but when someone else initiates a flirt, he short circuits. That instance of Bella, I think, is a really good example because he gets into the whole don't objectify me. He gets all like tense and weird because she's being like, I want to have sex with you, really angry, sex.
We should really have angry sex.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm so, ma'am.
He's like, not that I don't want to, but
yeah. He does the whole like that the TikTok meme where it's like, mommy, sorry. and then he does that with Nick this episode.
I also want to point out in this episode, like, this episode is interesting because people who don't want to see Dean as bisexual try and explain this episode as like the way the episode tries to explain itself, which I think is also a fascinating look at like the episode itself and the show trying to squelch its own like subtext, where they try to like retcon all of the information about sirens in the like fourth quarter and be like, actually, it's just, you just really wanted a brother you could trust. And I'm like, stop.
First of all,
never how sirens work in any mythology. So
not a single one.
Also, I want to like as evidence to that, like there is a point when Sam is like, no, you have to go with Nick. Like you have to go with Nick. And Dean's all playing up this like, oh, I don't want to go and hang out with Nick. Like, and Sam's like, focus on the naked girls. You'll forget he's even there. Cut to a shot of them in the bar and neither of them
are even looking.
Looking at anywhere. They are faced to each other. They are sitting
they are on a date.
Kind of bent over the table, like towards each other a little bit.
Having
Like they're
talking about each other's music interests.
It's how you shoot a date scene.
Yes.
That's that shot angle.
There's like literally a woman in the background dancing because they're at a strip club and Dean is not paying attention to it at all. I think he looks at a stripper once and it's just when he's I am supposed to be on the lookout.
I'm supposed to like be aware of what's going on around me.
Like he's masking. Like I'm supposed to be into this, so let me like give her a cursory glance. But then tell me more about what you think of Led Zeppelin. Like it's just,
and he like compliments Nick. He's like, you're not bad for a Fed or something like that. And then, of course, Nick's like, aren't we both Feds? And he's like, yeah, but none are as cool as us.
I'm not you Fed, we Feds. Like he just totally doesn't.
Let's move on.
Again, even when he's comfortable, sort of half flirting, he's not comfortable getting turned around back on him. Like,
I just wanted to point out that this episode, who it was written by, because I always love looking at that and like seeing what else they've written. This is the last episode of Supernatural written by Catherine Humphreys, who previously wrote a small handful of episodes. She wrote this season. She wrote Metamorphosis. She wrote Dream a Little Dream of Me, Bedtime Stories, Born Under a Bad Sign, which is the first episode I was ever on of this show.
Ayo.
So she writes a lot of she likes to write episodes where Sam has some moments.
Yeah, Sam has questionable experiences. And then she also wrote Usual Suspects and Dead Man's Blood. But this is her last time writing on this show.
Thank you for your contribution. To her, not to you, sorry.
I was like,
No,
okay.
I just didn't remember her name. And I didn't want to say it.
Oh yeah, I thought you meant Elayna.
I'm so sorry. Sorry, that sounded so rude.
Thanks for speaking today.
Thanks for talking about that, Elayna. Anyway,
kind of going back to like what Abigail was saying, the way that the show tries to be like, it's in a brother thing, like that. When I watched that the first time, it was very, very frustrating because like, what do you mean it's a brother thing? And we get an example like in the episode of a guy who's with the siren and then he kills his mom. So it doesn't have to be the exact same relationship. Like,
but the only way they would have to like, not explicitly no homo the situation for them to like be honest about that. So then said they're like no homo. It's like not actually that, but it just falls real flat.
Yep.
Yeah, frustrating is a good word to describe the feelings there.
This is, I think, one of the most frustrated I've ever felt watching an episode of Supernatural, because I was just like, you were right there. You got so close to the point and then you just sailed right past it.
It almost feels like they wrote the whole episode with the original intent for the siren to be seducing Dean and for everyone to be aware of that, and no brother lines were there. And then the higher ups
and then
of
the
CW were
sniper
too
got
scared
a hold
of
of
it.
them.
Yeah.
The CW
And rewrote
sniper.
that last quarter, just that little bit. So the rest of it, they
Just
didn't
the
change
left,
anything.
you're right.
And then
It really is that last scene that feels like they're trying to censor themselves.
right.
Yeah.
Not
Disappointing.
to talk about, like, Harry Potter on Maine or anything, but like it very much reminded me of the which J.K. Rowling's a turf and we don't like her, disclaimer, but it was very much like in Cursed Child, where like they spend the whole time having like the two boys like flirting with each other and like pointing out like what a strong, profound bond they have, and then literally in like the last scene it's like, oops, but I'm gonna date this girl that was literally in like half a scene throughout the rest of the play, because no homo, bro. It's just this tacked on to the end explanation so that they can still appease anybody that would be against this kind of thing, and it's frustrating is the word.
Congratulations, CW, you're on the same level as J.K. Rowling.
Oh, low blow.
Oh no,
that's bad.
That's not a compliment.
Oh.
Yeah,
Not
you homoed in the same fashion as Turfy McTurfface herself.
I do want to like say, I do think that Dean is, this is kind of a little bit of a different time. Like when Dean confronts Sam and is like, how could you sleep with, like, if we're operating under the assumption that like Dean also slept with the siren, because that if we're operating under any of that sort of assumption, which I personally am, like at least that there's that pull and he and the Dean's
and that Sam finds them in a
about it
hotel
at
room.
least.
Yes. And then when he calls Sam out for sleeping with the girl, like hardcore projecting there, bro. Like,
Thou doth protest too much, Dean.
Dean is calling Sam out because he's jealous, because Dean has clearly had to hold himself back from somebody that he's interested in recently. So he's saying, hey, we can't fuck people on this trip. This is a siren hunt. We can't do that. I've held back. Why can't you?
Exactly. He's like, I could right now, and I'm not.
it's true. Actually, it makes it better if he hasn't and he's just thought about it. And he's just really mad at Sam because he's jealous. I like that way more, actually.
Because he hasn't been able to.
He's using sleeping with Nick as a threat.
Yeah, like, come on.
I will be by if you, so help me God.
Keep
Sam.
it.
I could do it.
Does that make the final scene worse by Sam thinking he might be responsible by provoking Dean into, well, if Sam had it, then I'm gonna, maybe Sam feels like he pushed Dean into that. I don't know. He did also tell him to go with Nick, so either way.
He did.
Which, I mean, now that we know that like Sam like slept with Kara, it really feels like Sam was like, you should get out of here. I'm about to go and flirt with this doctor lady.
I'll
Sam
go
was
check
like, this
on
was
the
intentional.
evidence.
Sam was not waiting to see if this was going to happen. Sam was going to make this happen.
Yeah. And that's great because he's like, he's sitting here being like, well, I mean, I'm about to get some, Dean. Why don't you go get some too?
Take a little break from the hunt.
Because I'm a like Sam knows truther, like
Mhm,
hardcore.
Yeah.
Obviously. Oh yeah. Clear.
Sam has figured
I
it
feel
out.
like
Very
I
much
feel
so.
like this episode shows that Sam
Yeah.
at least knew something.
Yeah, and also like Bobby possibly also
Yes.
also because like again at no point in this episode, not later, nobody explicitly corrects Sam's assumption, even though like we as the audience are supposed to like have that assumption corrected by what we see. Sam at no point gets it corrected that Dean was not taken in.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know why this connection just popped into my head, but it is also that Catherine Humphreys episode. Like at the end of Born Under a Bad Sign, Dean like takes the opportunity to poke fun at Sam, and he's like, you full on had a girl in you for like a week, and like makes that joke. And so easily the joke could have been made like, oh, so you hooked up with a male siren, and Dean could have gotten all flustered and denied it. But neither Bobby nor Sam do that to him because they just are like, oh yeah, Dean probably slept with him. because that's Dean.
Which goes along with my theory from early in season 3, like when Dean is on his like, I'm gonna die anyway soon, so like I'm gonna live it up. Like, he was living it up. There's no way Bobby and Sam didn't pick up on that part of it.
Not a chance.
And then he came back from hell with this like ridiculous chemistry with Cass, and they're just like, I guess we're just not hiding this anymore.
We're sticking with that.
Yeah.
But also, I think they also know that Dean can't handle like talking about anything. So that's why they actually don't talk about it, because they're like, we can't draw attention to the fact that we know, because he's going to have a blue screen meltdown.
Be cool. It's gotta be cool.
Don't blue screen Dean.
They can't make fun of him because they're like, he'll actually internalize it. And then,
and they know that he's uncomfortable about that. And that's like that ends up being actually like a weirdly heartwarming thing to think, that they know this about him, but they know that he isn't ready to accept that. So they're like, we're just going to know it and let that be the case. And when he gets there, he'll get there.
And the only dig we're gonna make at him is the only dig Sam's gonna make is the like, oh, that's one butt ugly stripper. Like that's the only joke he's gonna make.
And he's not even making it to Dean.
No. Yeah. That one's really just an attack at Nick.
And he's just he's questioning Dean's taste a little, but not because it's a man, just because he's like, come on, Dean. Like
you could
do better.
Have you he's like, I've seen Cass. Okay. That's excellent.
That is the perfect segue, as I don't think the contrast in this episode is like Sam and Nick. It's like Cass and Nick.
Wow. Galaxy brain takes
and
here.
Like Nick, the connection that Nick and Dean are making is around Nick is able to talk about like music and cars with him, and those are things that like him and Cass are still kind of figuring out how to talk to each other.
Yeah. And Dean, as we well know, is, a pop culture reference dork. And like Cass doesn't get any of that stuff yet, because he just hasn't been on Earth long enough to be able to understand any of these references.
2,000 years away.
And in episode 10, like they've had some conflict recently with the whole situation with Anna. Like there's some like.
So is Nick a rebound?
Nick's the rebound.
Yes.
Well, I think Anna is the rebound, right?
Nick is the
Nick's
second.
Nick is
Dean really not dealing?
Yeah.
It's the hoe face.
Dean is just like,
I'm trying to keep his mind off of it however he can.
Cass isn't interested, and so Dean whispers slut era.
He's like, he morphs.
I do think we want to talk a little bit about, because as much as Nick is not standing for Dean's brother, we do still have the like conflict at the end, which is between Sam and Dean, which is about their relationship.
Yeah.
And I do kind of want to hear of how you all interpret that scene.
At first, it kind of feels a little like Batman versus Superman. These two heroes that through different circumstances are turned towards each other and told that that's who they have to fight, and they shouldn't be fighting, but they are. And they've got a whole lot of pent up emotion and aggression, and they don't hold back. It was brutal.
I if you talk to me or look at, like my social media or listen to our podcast, I'm always almost always on Dean's side about things. But their whole argument is really hard for me to watch, because it seems like Dean's like, these are the things you're doing that are hurting me. And Sam's like, these are all these things about you that I think suck. And it's just like
identity stuff.
Yeah, it's so mean. And Dean's just like, I'm worried about you. I don't trust you right now. I don't know what's going on. And Sam's like, you are a horrible hunter. You could never do what I do. And like, he's being so mean and like actually attacking Dean. And Dean's just like,
Dean's just like, I care about you.
I love you, but you're hurting my feelings.
Yeah.
Like, you suck.
Dean.
I had noted that down too, because like what Dean is identifying that is hard for him, the reason he's like, you're lying to me, and I know you're lying to me, and that's hurting our relationship. And Sam's just like, you're a bad hunter, and you can't handle your own trauma from literal hell.
Whining about the souls you tortured in hell. Boo hoo.
Wow.
like that's made you weak, Dean, and you're like, whoa, Sam.
Sam, he went through 40 years of hell,
and at this point, Sam is 23.
Get over it.
Yeah.
He's a little older than that. He's like 20,
I think he's 25
at this point.
So almost double his lifespan. Dean spent in hell.
Yeah.
And so Dean is 69.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Didn't know that was going to happen until I said it. And I was like, oh no.
It's one thing I've like really noticed this season as opposed to like previous watches. I think I used to notice more of like Sam's like compassion towards Dean around the concept of hell. And I have noticed a lot of moments that are actually like kind of the opposite of that, of Sam being like just not getting it at all. And I don't think I've noticed it until this podcast watch, just how much Sam like does not get what Dean went through and keeps saying these like really insensitive things. Like a couple episodes ago, Dean is like, Sam, I know you're not telling me things. Like, why are you not telling me things? You know, like, and then Sam's like, okay, you go first. How was hell? And it's
Don't
like just
spare
not
the
the same thing at
details.
all. It's just like not the same. Like Dean is asking for honesty about like what's Sam currently doing, and Sam is asking for like gritty details of like the worst experience of Dean's life. And it's just like this lack of compassion that I think is characterizing. I love Sam. Like
Well, to that
I love
point,
Sam so much, but he's like the darkness piece is very present this season.
Yeah.
yeah, well, I think and that's really what it is. You're seeing like Sam himself is not that mean of a person and would not normally be doing these kind of things. It's really all their rift this season is all to show that like Sam is going down this path that is not good for him, and it's not good for his relationship with Dean. And it's really, that's I think one of the only reasons that I find season 4 really hard to rewatch. I struggle through the seasons where the two of them are fighting, because I'm like, it hurts so much, because you watch the show because they care about each other so much and because of their bond. And so when that rift gets introduced, it just makes it so much harder to watch. And you're right, like I think Sam is so much more savage towards him this season, not because he wants to be, but just because that's where he's at in his journey, and it really sucks.
I want to ask another, did anyone else pick up on this question? And it's around, like, we've talked a bunch about Dean's sexuality in this episode, but I also want to call into question Sam's based on that final scene, because the siren then, uses saliva to like also infect Sam. And I'm like, does that say, I mean, like, I also don't think Sam is straight, but like, and Sam, we're also getting, so I'm wondering also if there's a little bit of the like, also Nick says, I want to fall in love like again and again and again. Like, again, he's using that like that language, and he's not using it about the brothers being in love. He's using that about him individually. Like he's again like connecting the dots between the siren operates in a romantic or sexual connection. And so I was like, okay, so Sam's also vulnerable to this.
Listen, my theory was that there was no straight person in Supernatural except for John Winchester, and then he showed up in the Winchesters with cuff jeans. So now I'm questioning everything.
The cuff jeans.
Oh my goodness.
So I fully would support a reading of at least questioning Sam at the very least.
By curious.
Yeah, I think whenever I think of Sam, which is not like super into this episode, but like I feel like he's like some form of queer, and he just doesn't care. Like he like Dean is panicking at all times, and Sam's just like,
Sam's like, people, I like them. Sometimes I'm attracted to them.
One of my favorite like readings of Sam that I've seen, and this was, I think it was like through Tumblr or TikTok, one of the two, was that Sam is a non-binary lesbian. And I was like, I support it. Okay. Sure, support that.
Yeah. Sam is
non-binary lesbian using he, him pronouns. That's fine. Hold it.
Therefore, I think we need to talk about how Dean would have killed his brother if it wasn't for Bobby.
Oh,
I mean, they both were going pretty.
But the axe was coming down.
Here, Bobby to save the day.
And Dean does get the better of Sam, which is interesting considering the conversation was just about Sam.
I have that in my notes.
Better and stronger, smarter.
I said Dean won. Just saying. Dean wone.
Sorry. Dean won, but Bobby really won.
Oh yeah. Yes.
That's actually funny. I was rewatching, and again, this is not a spoiler, but it's just a moment from later seasons where they're about to like go into a fight, and Dean is like injured, and he's like, I'm too banged up to go into the fight, and Sam's just like, I would take a banged up Dean Winchester over 10 fine hunters any day, and like that's absolutely true. Like Dean is,
he's got some skills.
He's such a badass. Sorry. The soda? You boys are driving, ain't you? Beautiful.
And
always looking out for them. Yep.
A good dad. Yeah. Because John
His
dad
dad,
like
Bobby.
beer anyone. All right, hit the road.
John was not a dad.
John looks over to his 14-year-old and goes, "Want a beer?"
And then like immediately, would you like to drive the car right after that?
Yeah.
And Bobby's like, you're gonna be driving in a few hours? No, soda.
Here's
It's
your
gonna
Coke.
be soda.
Also, Bobby is like, you know, he's like, he tells them off for being taken in by the siren, but he also doesn't like, he also like is sort of understanding. He's like, you know, like, you're idiots that this took you in, but also like,
he tells them off for not calling and checking their sources better. He doesn't call them out for falling for the spell.
well, that's true. That's true.
It's not doing the legwork beforehand, you know?
Yeah.
It reminds me of Bobby in Tall Tales. He comes in and it's just like, guys, come on, like, get your heads out of your asses and you would see what's going on here a little bit more clearly. But it's like they really make good use of Bobby coming in and being able to diffuse when situations are tense with boys. And this is a episode that's like a classic case of that.
And he doesn't take sides too. Like, I feel like John in this situation would absolutely be taking sides.
He feels like he comes into the situation and doesn't have time for the drama. He's like, hey, just get over it. Move on. We got other shit to do.
You're professionals.
Yeah.
I also love that, like, after, like, he's annoyed with them, but he doesn't withhold affection. Like, as like he cares about them, and he like it always shows them that he cares about them. Whereas, like, obviously John would be like, I'm so disappointed, and just leave. Just be like,
John would have never showed up.
He has to have done that because he knew how John treated them. So he makes sure to take strides.
He like,
and he's just a better man in general. Like, I mean, and it's not hard to be a better man than John Winchester, but
true, Hannah.
But he climbs so high, he jumps so high over that bar.
He does. Yeah, Bobby soars.
Give the man an Olympic medal.
Honestly.
Yes. Something I think from this episode that like is something I drew when Dean talks about strippers, and I saw, Abigail, in your notes that you were like, ew, the way he talks about like, finally a case with strippers. And that's super gross. I agree. But like part of me is like, I see it as like he likes strippers because he does like women, of course.
And that's why I'm like, no problems. That's great.
Right. But I think he also like relates to strippers, especially in the time that like this was made. Like now, obviously, like sex workers, it's way more accepted. But at that time, it was people talked really poorly about strippers and about sex workers, and they were like almost outcasts in society, and like they had really bad, like people looked down on them. And so I feel like Dean sees himself the same way, and so it's almost like they're like the same as him, and he's like, that's why I love strippers, because like they're like me. Like, and there's like treat them like they treat me.
There's a relatability there that he doesn't, like we talked even earlier in this episode about how like, he doesn't know how to interact with like normalcy. So like interacting with people who are also sort of on the margins is like way more comfortable. I really like that interpretation.
It's a fantastic reading.
That's like changing my whole way of thinking about this. I mean, I still don't appreciate some of the like writing choices that the writers make in the way they portray sex work, but in terms of Dean specifically, his excitement is like, that is a lot.
With the writers, it feels like they knew that they were about to have an episode that was extremely queer, and they're like, we have to let them know that we have to mitigate this.
And then proceed to like kind of forget that about a third of the way into the episode. There's one scene where it can be kind of like, you can be like, oh yes, we're reminded he likes women, and then
and that's where it comes back to the jacking choices being made.
Jensen Ackles.
Like, Jensen,
saved the show.
I just want to know what's going on in your brain, sweetie.
If the show is acted by somebody actually just acting off of the script, it wouldn't have gotten as far as it did.
If they didn't have Jensen as Dean, we wouldn't be here probably.
And it's part of, I think, like, because I don't want to sit here and pretend like I know a real person in real life sexuality, especially if they've clearly stated it, but it just, I mean, like, you think about, like, look at how everybody reacted with The Boys. Like, everybody was like, wait a minute. Like, all of these, like, very straight men were like, I might leave my wife for Jensen Ackles. And the man just has that weird gender bent energy where you're just attracted to him. Like, if you're a person who's attracted to persons, Jensen Ackles. Period.
He's on the list.
He's got a pulse, and he's the pulse.
And he is the pulse. It's a great way to describe it.
I have like segue us just slightly, and this is just a brief comment, but again, this episode gives us another like reminder of Jean's intelligence. When they're talking initially about the sirens, and like Sam says siren, Dean goes Greek myth siren, the Odyssey, and then Sam's like looks at him like, how do you know that? Which is my least favorite trait of Sam's. My least favorite trait is Sam being like all
judgy,
arrogant and judgy about Dean's intelligence. And then Dean's like, excuse me, I read, which is like not the first time he said this to Sam when Sam has questioned his intelligence.
It's the first time he said it in a strip club, but
that we've seen.
Yeah, it's true. True.
We don't know how often Dean Winchester talks about literary classics in strip clubs. It could be much more frequent than we know.
I feel like
actually, you know what? It probably does.
There's probably a cut scene where him and Nick are discussing the homoeroticism of the picture of Dorian Gray. And I would like that scene.
I would love that so much.
Yeah, that's one of my least favorite ways that they write Dean, when they try to make him dumb or like
make us think we're his dumb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like they're
we
like,
talked
Sam,
so much about that.
Sam
on
went
show.
to college. He's so smart. And then Dean is just he can hit things.
He's big and brawny.
Yeah.
He has a
Like, he's
GED
so
and a give him hell attitude.
Which is and like that's all true, but also like
multifaceted.
when you think about like say like especially the later on seasons, Sam arguably is the like, I mean, he's obviously the bigger guy, but like Sam's physical abilities are growing, I think, significantly in over this course of the show. And like Dean's strategy and mental acuity are also things that like the further the show gets, the more they like lean on those. And then like neither of them are a monolith, neither of them are like one thing, but it is my least favorite thing because
Winchesters contain multitudes.
Yes. And they also do like this thing, the show does this thing like where it also uses other characters, specifically people close to Dean, to tell him he's not smart. Like whether, and we've seen that like unfortunately, like that is something we have seen from Bobby, we've seen from Sam a lot, and it is
John.
one of the little things where you're like, yeah, John obviously, but like
fucking John.
it's just that's like every time I see it, I appreciate when Dean pushes back on it. I think those are moments I really appreciate.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Cat's cradle going to get her, Slitter.
Something that bothers me about this episode is the siren, just in general, because I feel like actual siren lore is very different than they make it in this episode, at least from my understanding. And it's more so that like the siren wants to lure men to their deaths.
Yeah, usually they're killing that victim.
Right. And in the show, it's like they're using the man to kill women that are important to them. And so like, yes, the man suffers, but I think ultimately the woman suffers more because they die.
Oh,
And
wow.
They really decenter the woman in this story.
Yes.
Yeah, and it makes me really like, we have a lot in Supernatural, and like we're in season 2, and we've seen so much already in our podcast. Sorry, we've seen so much already where like it's like a woman scorned, or like all these like we're always playing it up that like women have to get worse than men, or like women. Yeah, I don't know. It's just really frustrating, and I'm like, in the end, why make the woman die so that the man like that? It doesn't seem like what a siren would want. See, I always thought sirens, hated men. And so like,
and that's the whole thing, is that they're very symbolic of being like this empowered woman that can lure men in and like destroy them. And so I never had really considered
it's destroying men by destroying women first.
Right.
Yeah.
And like
that's
gross.
terrible.
We don't like that.
Yeah,
No,
like those women didn't have to die.
Totally unnecessary too, because like they could have done this same story that way. Like they didn't need, like, I get that they were trying to set up this fight between Sam and Dean, but they could have done that without this, because if the siren infects both of them, they're still gonna probably fight. But like it doesn't need to be this. They didn't need to like kill like 6 women prior to that.
Yeah, it's annoying. As a woman, like I really hate it. Like, why do we have to do that? But
it's hard to watch like the first couple of scenes. The spousal like murder scenes are really hard to. I found them harder to watch. The older I get, the harder they are to watch.
Yes. Yeah, especially that first one. It's like it really is very domestic violence.
Yes.
It really it's hard to watch. Yeah, it's very hard to watch.
Like the way they fight right before, where he's like, "You made plans without asking me." Like like it's not just like he went home and killed his wife because the siren asked. Like they had like a whole setup for it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just uncomfortable.
That is the kind of thing that happens in, like you said, domestic violence situations without a siren involved.
Yeah.
And so again, it's like you're like victimizing the woman not only by the siren, but also the way the siren is doing it is like mimicking real life violence. And that's just like real icky. Like it's really
very much
especially because like the episode and like the show doesn't have any like nuance to it. Like they're just showing it. Like it's not like there's like a point to it. It's just to do it.
Well, that's like not to mention our other podcast, but like there's a moment in Our Flag Means Death where there's like a moment of domestic violence, and we talked on our show about how they don't actually on screen show it. You see like the silhouettes of the characters, and we talked about how like we really appreciated that because it was a moment where you still get to see that yes, domestic violence is a situation that is occurring, but you don't see it like at the expense of the person who is being abused. You don't have to actually see that with your eyes to imply that this is a bad thing that is happening. And Supernatural very much doesn't do that, especially in earlier seasons. It's just like, oh yeah, we're just going to show this really brutal, disgusting violence against a person, and it's gross.
It is.
Do better.
In general, TV shows, like we don't need to show like physical assault or sexual assault. Like we don't need to see those things anymore. You can imply it and have nuance, and we don't have to see it.
Looking at you, House of the Dragon.
You can give us the weight of those experiences in a story without having to subject your viewers to gratuitous like having to watch it, and which can be really traumatizing to watch. Even a scene like this, which like in comparison is more mild than
and it's gross because they do it under the guise of like, well, we're just trying to show what it's really like. It's like, but that's the thing, people who've lived through it don't need to see what it's really like. Literally the very thing we're asking for is to not see it again. I feel like we accidentally just did our whole representation check for going meta.
Which is maybe a great place to kind of segue and officially move into going meta. So this is where we talk about lore, we talk about representation, we talk about any behind the scenes things that we've noticed, trivia, all that sort of thing. Is there anything else anyone wants to say on representation specifically in this episode? It's kind of woven throughout, I think, a lot. We accidentally like just made the whole episode the whole thing. And a little bit with lore as well, because we talked, pretty extensively about the sirens.
One thing I did notice. Oh, sorry, this is about lore. Never mind.
So let's do it. Let's
go.
Yeah.
Okay, so get this. I was looking at Bobby's wall, right? All the phones that he had, which is such a badass move.
Good lore piece.
That is a really great lore piece. Yeah,
So
I love
good.
that we get the full conversation of Bobby is on it.
He's on top of it. He knew that they were going on a case. It's unclear how much they told him about the case they were working at that moment, but
he knows enough to fake it.
He knows enough to fake it and say, hey, my authority is not enough. Get your head out of your ass. Like, I got this. But he's got federal marshals, FBI, CIA, the police, and the health department. Okay, he's got all the bases covered. King shit right there.
I think this is the first time we've seen that.
That's the first time we see the wall.
Like,
this is beautiful.
A very pivotal lore piece, actually.
I wish they had leaned on. I wish they leaned on it more. They will sometimes, but I wish they leaned on it more because it's so. I
really would have loved though, as like an Easter egg, if like one of the ones in like the bottom corner just had like a little sticker and it just said "Teddy Bear Doctors." Like that would have made me really happy.
That would have been so.
Like
it's like a little toy phone.
He has like the head. He has the PhD in Teddy Bear doctoring.
Any other lore anyone else noticed, or like big picture season stuff?
Bronze knife is kind of an interesting factoid that they touched on. Bronze knife being the weakness of the siren with the blood of someone already affected. I mean, do sirens come back later on?
I think this is
think so.
They might like talk about them like in passing, but I don't think it's like an actual monster of the week.
I don't think we end up with some monsters that do some similar thing, but are never actually labeled as sirens.
But I think regarding lore, it's kind of cool to note that it's bronze specifically, because like bronze is a thing that was very much tied to like Greek mythology. And so like that's kind of a nice little nod to like the mention they make earlier about like, you know, like Greek myths, the Odyssey, like bronze was like the metal of that era.
I liked how Bobby said 3,000 years of telephone for the, you know, the riddle for the spell breaking. It was cool. I like that he's so aware of the lore himself and
and of the limits of it. They're like, what do we do, Bobby? And he's like, I don't know, we're figuring it out.
We're brainstorming here. Loved it.
Is there any other like final notes on the episode? Any other notes anyone wanted to talk about in general?
I love this episode for all its flaws.
I like it more after our discussion. There's
Nice.
there's a lot of stuff I hadn't considered.
Yeah, I have to, not to like make this happen early, but I have to thank our guest hosts because y'all have given me some like serious things that I never considered about this episode to think about, and it's been really good.
Y'all came in hard and brought all your opinions, and it was great.
Done it once, so
Yeah, this is that nuanced discussion that we were talking about. Yeah.
Well, it's now time for our last and often our favorite part of the episode, which is our character blessings. And so if you haven't listened to us recently or before, what we do is we each get to pick a character. We can pick the same characters as someone else if you want, and we bless them. We just basically speak highly of them for something in the episode, or we wish them well if they've suffered in the episode. Really, this is as deep or as shallow, as light as you would like. Yeah, Noah can start us off. Noah, who do you want to bless this week?
You know I have to go with Bobby because he went the hardest this week, as he does every time he shows up.
Always.
He single-handedly saved the show from having to save another brother from death. He just does the most, and I'm so proud of him. Blessings to Bobby, loving these boys and caring for them in every way possible. Beth, how about you?
I'm going to bless Dean because I feel like he just has a lot going on in his little brain and he needs blessings.
Yeah, bless his little crisis.
Yes. Sweet Dean.
Going through the most.
Yeah, he really is.
It's a rough like part of the season for him in general.
It is.
Like Sam's trying to kill him. Sam's lying to him. He knows Ruby's involved. Like things are just not
Recovering
going
from hell trauma.
Having that thrown back in his face by his brother.
Yeah. Being told that he's not like good at his job,
Which he is objectively good at.
Fantastic at it.
Decidedly so, because he's still alive. Wow.
Right. Well,
I mean,
taking that off the table, he's good at his job. He really is.
Besides his one weakness.
Yeah.
Hannah, how about you?
I would like to bless the victims of the siren.
Yes.
Like like we talked about, they really didn't deserve what happened to them. It should have been the men that the siren killed instead. It's just sad. They didn't deserve it.
Mhm.
I hope they're doing good wherever they are. Hopefully they're not in hell.
Yeah.
It's rough because it doesn't seem like a great place and super.
Outside of Supernatural, it seems great though.
Oh yeah, it sounds like a party.
Sounds like
but
a blast.
yeah, it's Supernatural.
So I have two small ones that I want to do. The first one is I would like to bless, what was her name? Kara? Bless you for escaping the narrative, honey. Like you get to live. And I hope that your life is blessed after your hookup with Sam Winchester, because Lord knows no one else is. And I would also like to bless Cass because his boyfriend is dealing with somebody else right now. And it's just, I'm sure that must be a difficult time for him. Given the glare from when he kissed Anna, I can't imagine.
Whoa. Anna kissed Dean. Dean did not kiss Anna.
Good point.
Let's get it
Good point.
straight.
Thank you.
Important distinction.
Redacted. But yeah, when Anna kissed Dean, Cass was really going through it. So I feel like if Cass were to know the extent to which Dean is being hit on and hitting on another man, he would probably be sad. So blessings to Cassie, baby, even though he's not in this episode.
His presence is still felt.
Appreciate being able to bring Cass into episodes he isn't in. It's my favorite thing.
What about you, Abigail?
Okay. I'm gonna bless Sam. This is my thing, is I try to bless Sam even when I'm really mad at him as a character. And this is one of those episodes where I'm like, Sam, smarten up a little bit. But I want to bless Sam because I think kind of what we talked about earlier, for all of that, he is making some really bad calls, the fact that he's lying to Dean, the fact, like, you know, a lot of the reasons he's doing that is because he is scared. He doesn't know what to do. He feels like he is trapped with very few options. You know, that's why he's back working with Ruby. He feels like it's the only way to get Lilith. And it's really hard for him to reach out to Dean and like be honest in his season. And I think I want to bless him for that struggle. because that's leading him this really like lonely path and this really dark path. And that's like, we know Sam's self-esteem is like not great because of everything in his life. And so, this is not helping. Like him making bad decisions is not helping him. So bless him for that.
You're here.
Well, that brings us to the end of the episode today. So make sure you are all subscribed to Saving People Queering Things wherever you can listen to your podcasts. And thank you so much to Hannah and Beth for coming on today's episode. It was fantastic.
Yes, thank you.
Y'all had such great insights.
Phenomenal insights. 10 out of 10.
Thank
Come
you.
back anytime.
Yeah, I know we've both really enjoyed it. So thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks. If you're listening to us, you should also absolutely be listening to Hannah and Beth's podcast, which is, I'm going to let you remind us all of the names of your podcast and maybe where we can find those podcasts or where we can find you on the internet, whether it's your podcast accounts or your personal fandom accounts. We'll put links in the description as well, but I'll let you also just share those.
So our Supernatural Rewatch podcast is called Raising Perdition. On Twitter, it's at @RPerditionPod. And then on TikTok, it's just at Raising Perdition. We have the Winchesters podcast, which is at Raising Winchesters on TikTok and at our Winchesters pod on Twitter. So, and then I'm Beth. So if you want to find me anywhere, I'm just Beth Loves Cass on all my social.
Yeah. And mine is Hannah Loves Dean on all my socials.
I love that pair.
Yeah,
Wait a
except
minute, I didn't realize that.
Loves is spelled L-U-V-S because the normal way was taken. So it's very like early 2000s. But yeah.
It's an entire vibe and it's great.
My username still has rocks spelled with an X. So
Nice.
I hear you.
Well done.
Yeah. Since we watched Supernatural, mine and Beth's like whole friendship has become like, you're the Cass girly,
Yes.
I'm the Dean girly, you're Dean coded, I'm Cass coded. Like it's just like that's the whole thing.
We were truly made for each other.
We were.
The best, honestly.
Love that for y'all. You can also find links to our social media and join our Discord server through our website, which is queeringthingspodcast.com.
Be sure to ride along with us next week as we discover episode 15, Death Takes a Holiday, through the theme of foresight.
Thank you all for coming along for the ride.
And we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again.